Everybody, today I'm going to talk to you about SetTimeout, SetInterval, Async await, and also promises. We'll also look at a real live example where we use an API that has a little bit of a delay to it and show how you can organize your code in a clear, concise way where it's easy to follow and debug. Now, first of all, let's look at SetTimeout and SetInterval. I have an HTML document right here. It links to a JavaScript page right here. And over here, I have the console. Let's go ahead and get started. I'll show you. Let's just make sure this is all hooked up right. I'll just do a log and I say hi. Okay, good. We're all connected. Now, let's look at the SetTimeout. I'll just say this is the first line. And then we'll say SetTimeout. What SetTimeout does is it takes a function as a parameter and also a timeout in X number of milliseconds. So let's just say 1,000 milliseconds, which would be 1 second. Now for this, we can say it will be log second line. Wait. Oh, hold on 1 second. I like putting a better comment in there. Wait milliseconds. Yep. And let's just say up here, we want this whole thing to wait 500 milliseconds. And we'll just make this MS. It should work. Good. That looks pretty easy. No problems at all. Just exactly how we would expect it. Now, most tutorials that I see, they just end right there. But let's just say, well, what about the rest of your program? Suppose you got, this is somewhere in the middle of your program and you want to continue on. Then you'll say, okay, log, and then you'll say third line. Before I hit save, what do you think is going to happen? You'll see first line, second line, third line. That's what I thought. But it doesn't do that. Let's hit save. It says first line, third line, second line. Why does it do that? It has to do with this idea called the event loop and synchronous activities. This right here is not synchronous, so it gets taken out of the main flow. It will be placed in this event table, and then there's an event queue. It will look to see, did 500 milliseconds pass? If so, then I'll go ahead and call this again. Now, another fine level of detail analysis is within, let's just say, 1 tick, in 1 tick of the clock. So inside that 1 tick of the event loop, things get done at the beginning of the event loop and things get done at the end of the event loop. Now, the way it works is these activities, this gets taken out right away. It gets taken out right away as if it didn't even exist. So the first part of the event loop is just going to continue all the way on down. And then when there's nothing left, it will go back and it's still in that same cycle and say, did time arrive for this event to happen? In other words, did this event actually happen? If so, then it gets called at the end of the event loop. So let's just take another example, an extreme example. We'll say that it's 0 seconds. Now, if you never worked with this before, this would really make your head explode. Because, look, I said don't even wait at all. I said wait 0. I'm telling you don't wait, so why aren't you executing right away? Why is it first, second, third? It has to do with priority within that event loop, within that 1 tick. It's still the 0 tick, but things get done at the first part of the loop, and then these items right here. And then this gets done at the end of the loop, if its time has arrived. If its time has arrived, which is 0. Now, there would be several more loops if you said 500 milliseconds or whatever. But the point is, this gets done at the end of whatever loop it's supposed to be in. It gets done at the end. So let's just say this all gets done in the 0 tick, but this gets done at the end of the 0 tick, and that's why that happens. So even if you had a whole bunch of other items here, 4th, 5th, and so on, right? What do you think would happen here? Do you think it'd just be like, okay, just do one, then go back to me again? No, no, no. It's going to go all the way on down. Yeah, 1st, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and then why I go back to me again. Okay, so you have to understand that to understand these asynchronous activities. So we got a pretty good handle on that. Now let's look at SetInterval. Interval is pretty close to the same idea as SetTimeout. SetInterval. You have a function, and inside this is a function. You'll pass a function as a parameter, and then you'll have an interval. Well, we'll just still say ms here, x number of milliseconds. Now, inside this function, we'll just say console log. We'll say log I will do this. I'll say interval I plus plus I times. I'll have I'll just say I equals 0. I should say let on these here. Say first. You're starting to see some jumps here. Let me put something a little better. Half a second. Now, this should not be a surprise to anybody. We'll see first line, third line, because remember we already discussed this gets taken out of the flow. So this will go first, and then this will go next, and then after that we'll see this thing continue on. Now, how do we stop this thing? The way you stop it is you'll call something. You'll say it's called clear interval, and you'll say, well, what am I clearing? You have to give this a name. So I'll say const. It could be anything. Some people call it handle or whatever you want. So let's just say you call it handle. It goes through it once and stops, but maybe we didn't want that to happen. We wanted to loop X number of times. We'll say let max number of times equals 5. Now inside here we'll have an if statement. I like ternary statements. Whenever you get a chance to use a ternary, it's fun and it's really clean. So what we'll say is we'll put a ternary here. We'll say if we have this I incrementer. Well, I incremented it right there. Yeah. So I need this in there because this thing needs to increment. So it's already incremented. So if I is greater than or equal to max, and then that's a true statement. You put a question mark here. That's a true statement. Then I'll go ahead and clear this out. Now, I want to prove to you, this could be anything, of course. We'll just say Robbie, put my name there. Clear Robbie. Then, if it's true, then go ahead and clear the interval. Otherwise, you say false. It could be anything. You just put whatever you like. So that'll clear out that thing. Okay, good, we're done. Now, we still have a problem because let's just say that we want to continue on with the program after we do this thing 5 times, and every time we loop on this, we want it to wait a certain number of seconds, 500 milliseconds. Oops. Now for this, we wouldn't want to do the ternary because we want to put a bracket and so on. We'll use it just a standard if statement. If I is greater than or equal to the max, yes, then we want to clear out. So we'll say clear interval, and we'll clear Robbie. Good. Now where do we put the rest of our program? We know we can't put it here because it goes first, third, and jumps right back there. Where are we going to put it? So we got to put it right here. We got to put it all inside that if. All right. So it's not quite as bad, but still, you see how that looks? It's just really awkward. The whole rest of your program has to be written inside here. Now, of course, this is using SetInterval, SetTimeout, things like that, where you're not taking advantage of the new functionality of async and await. So you can see that this really is not very optimal. But of course you can do it. You can do it. Now, you could start getting nesting problems. Suppose you want to do this again inside here, again inside, so you start getting indented all the way through. And this isn't exactly callback, but there's a term called Callback Hell. So the Callback Hell is where you just keep indenting all the way to the right. That's really for promises where you have a then, but still the same idea where you start indenting all the way down. It's very difficult to debug and follow your logic, even if it's your own. Can you imagine you've got to hand this program off to somebody else? So you don't want to do it this way. But I just want to put to you, yeah, sure, it can be done. Yeah, definitely can be done. Now, so now we went over SetTimeout, we went over SetInterval. I want to show you something that I found on the web that's pretty clever. It's just a couple lines of code. It wasn't the main purpose of that article, but it's still within that article. And I want to show this article to you. Give credit where credit's due. And so this guy right here, he wrote this article, and the title of the article is talking about the event loop and so on. But what I found most interesting was this line of code down here. Yeah. This line of code down here, this while loop. Now, he also gave credit to this guy right here, so it's heavily influenced by him. So who knows where that line of code came from, but I really like it. I think it's super clever. So let's see how we can use this. Let's go back to our program. Now, we saw how this doesn't really flow the way we want it to flow, so let's just get out of it. Let's go back to, I do want to keep some things. I want to keep these two. Now, what you could do is you could hand code. I'm going to show you how you can hand code your own SetTimeout interval, and the same principle will apply for SetTimeout. All right, so let's go to SetTimeout. Let's just say we want to go ahead and code our own. So we'll say const my SetTimeout equals. I'm going to pass in two parameters. This isn't exactly the SetTimeout, but it's similar. What you want to do is you want to loop on it 5 times, let's say. You want to loop on it 5 times, and each loop you want to wait X number of milliseconds. So we'll say max number of times, and we'll say we want to wait this number of milliseconds. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to have a while loop. But first of all, we need 2 parameters, 2 variables. We'll say let now equals new date. And you can say let begin also equals new date. Good. So far, so good. Now what we want to do is we want to write our while loop. This is what I found I loved about that line. I love reading really cool snippets of code because I store them away and I'm like, I could use that somewhere. Let's take a look. what we'll do is we'll say while some condition is true, while now, the difference between now and begin is less than, is less than this X number of milliseconds. You can say less than or equal to, but I'll just say less than. Then we're going to keep doing this. Actually, what I'm doing here is I'm programming my timeout. Let me just do my timeout first, and then it'll be easier to understand the other. You say while this is underneath less than your desired number of milliseconds, your wait time, just keep going. Now, you have to update now. Now, well, you just move that in there. You got a new now. So that will wait those number of milliseconds. Let me just run that thing and show you that it actually does work. Well, we also want, let's just save this for now. Hold on, I didn't call it. Now, and by the way, let's just keep our code clean. We'll say this is our main flow. All right, now we want to wait a certain amount of time. We'll say my timeout. I'll make it a little bit obvious. We'll say a second. Good. Now, I didn't put a second line in here. I can do that. I want to prove to you that you would get the first line, the second line, and the third line. Let's say that let's just say here, we'll put log second line. All right, let me hit save again. Okay, that executes, the second line executes immediately after the first line. Suppose we wanted to wait that certain amount of time first and then do that. So you just move it to the end. Now, it's very important to understand that this is not asynchronous. In other words, this does not get taken out of the program flow. It's still in the main stack. It's still in the main stack. This is not a function, even though it is a function. It's not like the other SetTimeout function where it gets pulled out. Right? This is my custom code that I created here, and it's just doing this loop. So it's considered to be blocking code. It's considered to be blocking synchronous code, and it's also considered to be bad form. This is bad form. If you're going for a job interview, you may not want to show this. Okay, but who knows? You put this in your tool bag. It may come in handy someday, right? Or if you just need a quick and dirty solution. Although I do recommend using async await. It's not that hard once you get used to it. But it's always cool to see just, fun things. If for no other reason, it's a puzzle. Right. Now, let's just say that we want to make this instead of my timeout, let's say this, I want this to be my time interval. My set, I think I called it, my set interval. My set interval. We need another parameter. It's not exactly the same as a my set parameter. We'll just say we want this to be performed a loop max number of times. So I'll put max in here. We want to put a for loop in. We're going to do this. We're going to say I less than next. Ooh, I didn't want to do that. What am I doing Good. Now we will move all this in here. Alright, so we're going to loop on this X number of times. And each time we go through, we'll go ahead and say something. Second line. We have a counter, so let's use our counter. It's going to start with 0, so I'll say I plus 1. I don't want to destroy the counter. It waited how long? Okay, good. That should work. Here's our main flow. We say first line, we set our interval max, we're going to wait, that's too long, say 500 milliseconds, and then we'll say third line. So it looks well, it is synchronous. This is blocking code. Okay, so we hit save. Great, okay, so now you know how you can custom code your own SetInterval. It's blocking code. I think people will look down on you, may look down on you if you wrote it this way, but it could definitely come in handy. How much are you blocking anyway? Just a little bit here. But I do have to say this is bad form. Now, let me show you a problem. Let's just say even when we got these, I want to show you two different ways. I want to prove to you why you definitely want to use async awaits. And the reason why is because the operation that you're doing here may actually be asynchronous. This is synchronous here. It just runs straight. But let's just say that you want to do an AJAX call, right? Or you want to perform some kind of operation that actually is a promise, and you're going to await it. All right, you're going to blow up this whole thing. And let me prove that to you. We'll say here, remember we just said even if you wait 0 times, it gets taken out of the flow. We think we're really clever here. We built this thing, and it's like, okay, I beat the system. I got it. I don't care if I'm blocking. So what? Ha ha. Well, let's just pretend this is an ace. You're calling this do something right here. Let me just create a function. Do something. Do something. I should call it const. All right, I'll just call it. So do I want to pass a parameter? I won't. All right. So we're going to do something, and our do something is this. Oh, I suppose I could pass a parameter. I need to bring that in as well. Sorry about that, guys. I'll just move this. It's better to do it this way. All right. Now I'll put do something here. Same idea. It should still work, but I'm going to break it in just a second. Ooh, oh, I needed that I. I needed that I to come in there. All right, so we'll put that I here. Okay, good. Yeah, I knew that parameter going there. All right, so everything's still fine. We're still happy. Now, let's just say that in this example, what we're doing inside here is asynchronous. We know that if we put a SetTimeout, that's going to throw it out. We're going to pull it out of the flow, right? Now you say, well, I know that. I'm not going to call a SetTimeout, but you may not have control over that. You may have to call some kind of function that's going to be asynchronous, now you're going to be in trouble. So let's just simulate that. So we'll say set timeout. And again, we're going to use our friend 0, right? Let's see if that works. I don't think it's going to work. No, it won't. See, it went ahead and it did all that blocking. Then it did the third line. It's weird stuff, right? You get unexpected things. It does the first line. So you did the first line, it did the third line, and it didn't execute this. Why? Because we learned earlier this gets pulled out of the main flow. It's not in the main call stack. It's over in this event table. It's going to be queued up after all these at the end of the tick, at the end of the event loop. Then this comes in. Now you say, well, why am I waiting so long? Because you got blocking code, but that's still within that one event loop. Okay, that's what's happening here. So this is where you get in trouble. Even with our custom code thing here, it's not gonna work right. So I think hopefully I convinced you that you can get yourself wrapped around the axle by doing this, and it's not going to work if this is async. All right, enough on that. Let's comment this out. Now, I had another example where I did it with SetInterval. See, I showed that it won't work if it's our custom code SetInterval, and I also want to show it's not going to work even if we do our even if we do the standard SetInterval. It's still not going to work. This is, oops. It's the same idea. You have the first section, and you're going to have the SetInterval. Inside the SetInterval, you're going to do stuff, and you'll keep doing it max number of times. Then when you're done, you'll clear the handle, just whatever you call this. Yeah. Now, then when you're done, the rest of your code has to live inside here. It can't be down there, because remember, this whole thing got pulled out. So now you're stuck in hell. You're stuck in hell in here. You can't go here. Question mark. Right. Now what's going on here, we're going to say do stuff. Do stuff. We got the same idea with the set timeout. I'm going to say 0 here. I'll make the wait loop a little bit shorter. And we want to go 5 times. Let's see. 68. Oh, wait, what's going on 68? Oh. All right, yeah, see, we can't do that. So clearly we can't do that. We're stuck in this so-called callback hell. It's not exactly a callback hell, but it's the same idea. First I can do third section. Oh yeah, see, third section's right here. Third section's right here. All right. Okay. Why did this happen this way? It's you could say, well, I'm not going to hit this third section line of code until I go all the way down to my 5th one. So I'm actually okay for 1, 2, 3, and 4 because I'm going to go ahead and I'll be in different event cycles. I'll be in a different event cycle here for the next tick and the tick after that and the tick after that because I'm waiting here. But on the last tick, where you're actually on the exact same event loop, this one right here will take precedence. So this will actually be ahead of that other one. It'll be ahead of that other one. So you're always going to have that problem. Now, let's just say that even if, suppose we go 300. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, you're going to have the same problem no matter what. The whole thing gets shifted over. It gets very confusing on this, but work through some examples. Oh yeah, see, this thing got, the third one goes up farther. So you could get into even more, even in the most extreme case where you say, oh, you know, this duration is 0. It doesn't take any time at all. But if it's an async with 0 time, you're still going to have this race condition where they're in the exact same event loop, but this will be earlier in the event loop and this will be later in the event loop. And that's in the most ideal situation. You can have a situation here where, like I just showed you, where it's longer. And there's 5 of these. Let's just say that maybe that third section. Okay, so anyway, you get the idea. It's not going to work the way you want it to. You're going to get unpredicted results. So there's got to be a better way, and there is. And that's with async await. So let's go down to, we went over the hand code stuff. Yeah, here we go. This is what we want. I coded this up ahead of time. I didn't want to waste your time watching me type all this stuff in. The easy stuff's fine, but some of this other stuff, if I leave something out, it's going to fail. All right. Let me explain this. Here's the main flow, and this is going to flow exactly the way you want it to. We're wrapping this thing inside an async await. I mean, inside an async. So yes, you do have one indenture, but that's only if you can live with that, then you're in great shape. Everything else is going to flow exactly the way you want it to. So let's just say that you want to loop on this thing 5 times. Where's my max variable? 5 times. You want to loop on this thing 5 times, and you want to do something, and then you want to wait a certain amount of time, and do it again, and do it again, and do it again. The beauty of this is there's no relationship between this and that, doing stuff and waiting. If this takes longer than your overall wait time, who cares? You're not going to, because it's all it's all synchronous in the sense that it's one after another. You're going to wait on the promise being resolved here before you proceed to here. The await says, I'm going to wait for this thing called a promise to finish. And when that happens, I'm going to go to the next step. Let's go take a look here. In this do stuff, it's a function and it just returns a promise. And wait is a function that returns a promise. So you're going to wait on the promise. Now the promise gets resolved. The promise gets completed at the execution of this statement right here, resolve. When inside the promise you see that word resolve, then the promise says, I'm done. And then whoever was waiting on that promise says, oh, thank you, now I can move down to the next one. You can pass a parameter inside this resolve. And let me just prove that to you. Because it always is frustrating to me where people go, yeah, you can put a parameter, but they never do it. And then I'm like, well, maybe I want to put a parameter. You never showed me how to do it. So let's just say that maybe I want to return J. I'm not going to do anything with it, but maybe I want to return J. And maybe I want to return 10 times 1,000, 1,000 times MS. All right, I just want to prove to you you can return stuff. And the way you do it, you just say something equals that. So you'll just say let x my I'll just say val1 equals this, and I'll say let val2 equals that. And I'll just prove to you that actually that's coming through. So I'll just say log val1 equals val1 and val2, same idea. All right, I'll clean that out later on, but I just want to prove to you how this stuff works. So the resolve, a lot of times I think about a resolve is kind of like a return. In other words, the promise says a return on a function says I'm done and I'm going to return you a value. A resolve on a function says I'm done and I'm going to return this to you. So I look at a resolve as a return on a promise, the same way a return is on a function. If that helps you, great. Now, let's take a look here. I have these parameters here. You're going to wait this long, and so on, and you're going to do this thing 5 times. You don't have to put this in all this junk right here inside the async. You don't have to. In fact, this part doesn't have to be inside there either. I just put that for readability, so you can say, hey, this is my main flow right here. All right, so I changed it all up, changed a lot of stuff up. Let's see if it still works. All right, let me close myself down a little bit. So it did work. This is our first section. We're going to loop on this thing 5 times, right? Did stuff 1 time. I added that val1. See, that was our 1, right? I want to prove to you could actually return stuff. See, val1 equals 1, 2, so on. So you can return stuff inside that val resolve. And the second one was 1,000 times ms. That's always going to be the same all the way through. Let me just run it again, taking that out. We don't need it. Ooh, we need that. No, we don't need that. We don't need that. What I'm curious about is, what if do I really need this? I don't think I do. Yeah. Even though you're resolving something, you don't have to catch it on the other side. Okay, so this is the first one. Did stuff 1 time, wait, and so on. Oh, that's this one right here. Okay, good. All right, perfect. So this is how you would write your code. You just put an async here, and you put your normal stuff in there. This will look to be synchronous, but it's not because you're using the await. And you just have to remember you promisify a function inside here. Okay, I didn't have to wrap this. I did not have to wrap this in a function. I wrapped it in a function. Why? Because I wanted to pass this ms down inside here. If I didn't do that, I wouldn't be able to. I could just say wait time equals this and say await wait time. In other words, where wait time isn't a function. Let me just do that. A lot of this stuff kind of confused me for a long time, so I just want to point this out. I'm gonna let's see. Hold on. Let me just take this whole thing here. wait time 2 equals. Right. So this is going to be a, let's just say, hopefully I won't get in trouble with the const. Sometimes they make it bigger. Okay, const wait time 2. Now, did I define MS as global? No, I didn't. See, it'll blow up because it doesn't know MS. It won't know MS, so I'd have to. I could hard code that in here. Let me just show it blow up. Yeah, it didn't know what MS is. Well, I could put it in here. Oh, hold on one second. I still got something. 214. Intermediate value is not a function. Oh, and it just stopped. Maybe if I did it that way, I had to put this inside here. Intermediate value is not a function. Oh, at 214. Okay. Yeah. So I needed to. Times 2. I just like to change things and make them blow up. Yeah. See, that's the disadvantage of not putting it in a. Oh, and it still didn't work the way I wanted it. Oh, did wait stuff. Oh, yeah, and it only resolved it once. It only resolved it once. You see that? Yeah, that's no good. So you definitely need to put it in a function, the way I originally had it. I always encourage people to try to blow things up. That's how you know what absolute minimum viable code. Oh, now I need to move this thing back. Okay, and I said, oh, let me just go all the way back to where I had it working good. Good. And I didn't need this anymore. Yeah. Okay, great. So always try to break your code. Always try to break your code. That's where you know that's how you test the limits. Good. So there we go. We actually did need to put that in a function. I did that originally because I wanted to pass a parameter, but otherwise, when you start looping on it, it didn't execute more than once. So put it in a function. All right, great. Now I want to show you a real life example because it's a stylized example where I say, you're doing a timeout, but there's no feel for it. In Taiwan, we say "mayo few," mayo few. So let's get some few here. We want to get some few. Let's put. Oh, and I also wanted to comment this out too. Good. All right, here's an example of calling an API. I mentioned calling an API. This is a bonus I'm giving you guys. There's a website called Chuck Norris Jokes. I'll show you how that works. What this is, it's an API, and it will return this. Random jokes. You run it again, you get another joke. You run it again, you get another joke, so on and so on. So every API has their own format, right? So what we want is we want to go all the way down here, and what we want is we want the joke. So it's going to be inside this JSON object right here. It'll be inside value of 0 because I had the parameter of 1. I think you could get multiple jokes, and you get those. But I wanted to do it one after another, just to simulate what we had in the example here. So we'll go value joke. That's what we want. I have this all coded up, but I just want to show you how that works. So let's go to that, and I'll show you how that works. All right, so it's still our friend the async, and everything lives inside that async. We got our two functions, do stuff and wait time. Wait time is the same. Here's our main loop. It's our main loop. Before the loop, I think I called it first section. Section 1. Section 1 of your code. Section 2, 3 of the code. This is the middle. And you're going to loop this max number of times. This is where we're actually returning the joke, right? You're going to do the stuff, you're going to return the joke. And you'll just console log out the joke. And say joke number 1 is this. And then you'll wait and you'll do it again, right? You wouldn't have to wait, but I just want to show you how you could actually put a wait in there if you wanted to. Now, inside here, well, here's the URL that I just showed you. I said I want one joke. Like I told you before, I could have said 5 or 10 or whatever, but I want to show you the loops and things like that. And I'll just say the wait time is 500. Okay, now here's the goodies. Inside do stuff, it's the same idea. All you're doing, is you're returning a promise. You're returning a promise. That's what this function does. But here's the key. Remember I said resolve is like a return. A resolve is like a return on a promise. So the resolve is going to return something. It's going to return the joke. That's the joke we wanted. So I'm just calling the XML HTTP request. So it's going through all this stuff, making sure it's good. Then we parse it and so on. But this is what we wanted. We wanted the value 0 in joke. Okay? And it's a get request on so on. Oh, I hard-coded that. Why did I do that? Okay, so it's calling in URL. I shouldn't do that. Let's see. I didn't need to do that. All right, I think we're good. Because what we're doing is we're passing URL here. URL goes there. But the key is really, it's the same idea as we showed before, right? You're returning a promise, and then you're resolving that joke. And then you're passing back that joke to here, and then you're logging it out there. Okay? So this is a real-life example. I mean, it's an example where you're actually calling a website, doing an API request, and then you're getting it. You're doing this all inside what? The async. And believe it or not, well, let me get it first, and then I'll try to break it. You always try to break things, okay? All right, so let's just hit save and see what happens. So we should get 5 jokes. So we had the section 1 and section 3. That's good. So this is all section 2 in here. Joke 1, Chuck Norris doesn't pair program. I don't really know what that means. Okay. Joke 2, Chuck Norris is not politically correct. He's just correct, always. Okay, these are funny ones. All right. When Chuck Norris does division, there are no remainders. And then Chuck Norris can watch the radio. Right. Okay, I put that wait inside the wait here. I actually logged that. I didn't have to do that, but So you get new jokes all the time. Chuck Norris uses 8x10 sheets of plywood as toilet paper. There are two types of people in the world: people that suck and Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris finished World of Warcraft. He invented the internet, so he had a place to get his storage porn. Chuck Norris doesn't believe in Germany. I don't really know what that means. Okay, all right, so there we go. Now I want to show you something here. Let's try to break it. Let's see what would happen if we pulled all this stuff outside the async. I think it should still work. Just move it all out. Make our code a little bit clean. All right. Move it up a little bit. Oops, not that far. So all these functions and so on, they shouldn't have to live inside that async. Yeah, great. The functions and the variables. Yeah, because we had the URL outside there. So inside this async, which is your main flow, I'll just put this right here. That's your main flow. This could be very concise. This could be very, very, very concise. And then all this other junk could be actually different JSON files, JavaScript files that you pull in. You can require those in if you wanted to. So there you go. It's a long video, but what did we do? We covered a lot of ground. We covered the very beginning. Let me comment this junk out. Covered a lot of ground. We covered the idea that SetTimeout, SetInterval, that gets pulled out of the main flow no matter what, even if it's a zero wait. It's going to happen after everything else is done. So you just have to know that. We also learned how you can hand code your own my SetTimeout, my SetInterval. It looks as if it's async, but it's not. It's blocking code, and that's why it flows from top to bottom, because it's blocking. It's all inside that stack. Nothing gets pulled out. It's all inside that stack. That's not really the good way to go, because if you have something inside that set time interval that's async, even 0 second, it's gonna run not when you think it's gonna run. Even if it's 0, that very last iteration, it's going to get put to the back end of that event cycle, and you'll get things out of sync, out of order. And then this situation even gets worse when you got longer timeouts and so on. So the hand coding of the set timeout, set interval only works, and you got to remember this, only works, the hand coding of it, remember that's blocking code, that only works if what you got inside there is also going to be executed inside the same stack. In other words, it's not async. So just keep that in mind. But really, the best way is just to buckle down and bite the bullet and learn async await. It's not that hard, because remember we looked at this. Well, this one, it looks a little complicated because of the myset, because of the HTTP request, but this one was pretty darn clean. The other one, where was it? Oh, I was all the way down the bottom. Hold on a second. This one was really pretty clean. Yeah, see how nice and sweet that is? That's just so easy. If you got a problem, it's easy to debug it and do stuff. Doesn't have to live inside there. Do stuff's up here and wait time and so on. So there you go. There's lots of videos out there, tutorials on timeout and so on. I hope this helped you. If it did, and maybe you learned something about promises or async await, please give me a thumbs up. It just makes me happy knowing that I helped somebody out. So, and you can subscribe if you like. All right, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.